Salutations, fellow denizens of the World Wide Web. Dabrainbox here with PlopDoo presents the intelligent side of gaming, and I'm here today to talk to you about video game genres. The footage in the background is me just having a look around the PlopDoo Adventuring Company mod for Skyrim, which we've been starting to do a bit more work on it now. I mean, we did some work when it initially came out just to lay the groundwork, but we finally got some real evidence to show for it. But anyway, that's not what I want to talk to you about. Genres. Now, in the modern gaming industry, it's very dominated by two specific genres. That's FPS, first-person shooters, and role-playing games, or RPGs. Now, why is that? Personally, I think if you look back, then looking through the different times, there will have been different genres dominating the industry at different times. That's due to the technology available. For instance, platformers first became available, and they suddenly dominated the industry because they were quite easy to do with the technology that was available, and they were very prevalent at the time as a result. Now, what I think we're seeing a lot at the moment is some mixing of genres, which means, like, say, although I loathe to use this example, Call of Duty. That's an FPS, it's a first-person shooter, obviously, but it has RPG elements. No, it doesn't, you might be saying, but yes, it does. It's the leveling system in the multiplayer. That's technically an RPG element. Just something to think about. So, with that mixing of genres, I think will become a lot more prevalent in the future, as the ability to add stuff into other games becomes more common, more applicable with the technology. For instance, we might see, I don't know, say RPG is the one which will be mixed most of the time. Say we see an RPG mixed with a first-person shooter, like where it's prevalently an RPG rather than prevalently a shooter, like in Call of Duty's case. That could happen quite easily. In fact, it might happen to some degree with the PlanetSide 2 game, multiplayer that's coming out. Massively multiplayer online game. Sorry, that was a bit silly. Now, on to what we can expect in the future. Now, this is tricky to predict because, well, it always is, because we don't live in the future, so we can't tell, therefore, what's going to happen in the future. We've all seen the ridiculous predictions that were made back in the 60s, like we'd have our first colony on the moon by 1990 or something silly like that, and well, I don't know. I'll keep mine fairly safe. I predict there'll be an increase in cinematic games. For instance, like Heavy Rain, where it's basically a story first and foremost, and the game's just to experience it and shape how it evolves. Now, we'll see that mixed with a number of other genres. Say, perhaps a first-person shooter where you are just a soldier in an army, and the number of people that you kill determines how well your army does in the war, which then, therefore, affects the outcome of the story. But you can't kill all of them because obviously you're just one person. Might happen. I'd quite like to see something like that, actually. Now, also, I think we'll see an increase in single-player plus multiplayer games, which is stuff like Diablo 3, where it's primarily single-player, but it does have, by default, always on multiplayer, where people can just jump in and out and help you out with your game, or something like that. And Mass Effect 3, where there's a multiplayer in that, and it affects the single player in quite a big way. The things that you do with your friends in the multiplayer will really affect your single player world. And I think we'll also see a lot of new MMOs. You can see my previous video on MMOs on the PlopDoo channel, just for my thoughts on that. But there's another one been announced since then. Well, that's come to my attention since then, called Raiders with a Z on the end. That's a Z for you Americans out there. And that's like a Monster Hunter game, but multiplayer. And well, those are the types of games which I think will be most prevalent in the future. Just my guess, though. And this is a fairly short episode, just to make up for the lengthy one last week. But well, that's it from me for today. Farewell from Dabrainbox. See you next time.